Today, 19 games into his second season in Memphis. Memphis is 7-12 out of the gate, including 8 straight losses. Shortly after our insider Agent Wojnarowski broke the story, Cavs LeBron James reacted to the news, tweeting this about Fizdale's firing. "I need some answers. Feels like my man was a fall guy." LeBron had more to say on this matter, as did Memphis GM Chris Wallace.
I know the type of coach Fizz is. I know how players relate to him, and I know what he stands for. And he don't stand for no. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's what it was, because he ain't gonna kiss nobody. I know that.
Unfortunately, we are underperforming even the lowest of preseason expectations. We're an organization that has high expectations for our team, so change had to be made.
Rightly or wrongly, it's perceived around the league and in Memphis that Marc Gasol greatly influenced this decision. Did management or ownership have a conversation with Marc before or after you fired Fizdale?
Well, obviously, it's no secret there was tension between the two, and this is a factor, but it's not the overriding factor. As I said, the trends have not been positive. We've been heading in a bad direction for quite some time. We need to turn this around. And, we talked to Marc, basically in real time as about the same time that I was talking to Coach Fizdale.
For more on what's going on in Memphis, back to you, Molly.
Thank you. Memphis Grizzlies fired David Fizdale. The move comes a day after All-Star big man Marc Gasol complained of being benched during the fourth quarter of the team's 8th straight loss. Stephen A., what's really going on here with this firing?
What's going on is that the Memphis Grizzlies as an organization is full of it. This is BS. It's a bogus firing. There's no excuse for it. And they should be ashamed of themselves. I haven't spoken to Chris Wallace in a while. He's a good man. I think that this was a decision that came down from ownership. This guy, listen, here's the deal. This is the same organization that got rid of Lionel Hollins after he went 56-26 and went to the Western Conference Finals. Now, David Yeager did a good job for them the 3 years that ensued. Then they got rid of him. So this isn't the first time that this has happened, and we all get that. But what rakes my nerves about this is that, according to my sources, because I spoke to folks last night, I was at the game, I got some calls from people who matter and who would know what the hell happened. Gasol did not like this man. Fizdale was hired to make a culture change. They wanted a culture change. They wanted people to be treated differently. They wanted a coach, whether it's a heavier hand or a lighter hand, all the particulars I don't need to get into. But Fizdale went in there to change. And everybody was on board but Marc Gasol. Marc Gasol was not on board. Marc Gasol was against it from day one. Marc Gasol gave him pushback, and LeBron James is absolutely 1,000% accurate. Fizdale ain't the type of dude that's going to take that. He takes no mess from anybody. He's going to tell you where he stands. He's going to let you know he's going to be fair, but he's going to tell you where he stands, and that's going to be that. He's the coach, and somebody has to make the decision. Now, if Fizdale did one thing wrong, here's what I would say he should have done. When you benched him in the fourth quarter the other night, yeah, the team was rolling, and as a result, you're going with the hot hands. The guys came off the bench. They're making a run after 18, 19-point deficit. If you're going to sit Gasol for the game, he's Marc Gasol. You pull him to the side. Look, here's what I'm thinking. Here's why. Just want you to know that. In other words, you should have handled that a touch bit more delicately. But it's certainly not a fireable offense. And this early into the season, consider the fact that you didn't have Mike Conley Jr. for the last 6 games. Okay, you didn't have him for 6 games. You were on his 7th game losing streak. You didn't have him for 6 games, or 6 of those games. This is a very bogus decision. Greg Popovich says this man was a good coach. People from the Coaches Association says this man was a good coach. Coaches around the league recognize he's one of the good young coaches in this game. He is highly respected, and he comes from Pat Riley, where he was an assistant in Miami for all of these years. We know where he comes from. And so when you look at it from that perspective, the Memphis Grizzlies, this was a bogus decision on their part, bunch of BS. They need to be answering for this. But again, their defense may ultimately be, it ain't the first time we did it. We screwed over Lionel Hollins. We screwed over Dave Yeager. So what's the big deal with screwing over David Fizdale? That's about the only argument that's plausible enough for the Memphis Grizzlies to come up with. You could say Marc Gasol got him fired because he didn't like him, and he certainly wasn't happy being coached by him. And there may be some truth to that, but ultimately it wasn't his call. It was their call. And this is not the first time that they have screwed over a coach. And they did that here with Fizdale.
Follow the money. So Robert Pera is. You bring up Wallace. You bring up Wallace, who's the GM.
I was really talking about Pera.
And usually I point to the GM. with this, but let's take it a step further. There was an unfavorable business report that came out about a company of his that caused, according to Forbes, the stock price to tumble 5%, which is an enormous hit.
Okay.
This is a team when they said, this number of teams, remember with the NBA, this number of teams is losing money. Now, of course, the equity in the team continues to rise. A lot of teams are really real estate deals and all that. But in terms of the operating expenses versus the revenue, all that stuff, Memphis lost $40 million last year, right? So there's pressure for a small market who finds it difficult to attract the top flight guys, but they put together a nice team. They got Mike Conley, they got Zebo, and they got Gasol. Let's keep this together and keep it going as long as possible. The problem is, I always quote Branch Rickey, get rid of him a year too early instead of a year too late. They're into big money for Conley, and he's injury prone. Gasol is, by the way, it's not just that he's 33. It's that he was operating in a league a couple of years ago where he's the best big. You got Embiid, Porzingis, Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Davis. Ask Utah or Denver if they'd trade their big for Gasol right now. No, they wouldn't, given age and talent and everything. Suddenly, Gasol is not the best big anymore, and it's not the guy you want. It's at least half a dozen teams who like their guy better. At least half a dozen teams. So his value is lessened as relative to the league and his position even before you get to the age and the declining fortunes of the team. And this is a team that pretty clearly, I would guess it's coming from ownership and not the GM, wants to sell tickets. And Marc Gasol is their most popular or among their most popular and famous players. And so they're appeasing him, an aging 33-year-old center, in a league where suddenly he's not as valuable anymore because there are more good bigs than there have been in a long time. They're appeasing him instead of the head coach, who everyone likes the cut of this head coach's jib. We all take that for data and all that stuff. He seemed to get him going last year. He seems to be popular around the league, not just in Memphis. You're actually going to side with who you think, I suppose, is a ticket seller because you're under some financial duress instead of the head coach. That is an enormous mistake. This team, even on Gasol and Zebo and Conley's best days, weren't going to win a championship.
Well, keep in mind, Zach Randolph.
And now they're in decline.
Zach Randolph is gone. Tony Allen is gone. You let these folks walk away. Conley's injured. Marc Gasol is not that great anymore. He's averaging 19 and 9. He can play. He's no scrub. But the game is, it's modified a bit. It's changed, like you pointed out. In the end, though, is this. Don't tell me 16, 17 games into the season, the man deserves to lose his job. He started out 5-1. Now you're on a 7 or 8 game losing streak. You can very well turn it around and start winning games down the pike. And if you want to make a decision at the end of the year to let him go, let him go. But the point is they have a history of screwing over coaches in recent memory. Evidently, they believe that their definition of, I guess they believe they're better, or they should be up there with Golden State. They should be up there with San Antonio. No, you're not them. You're not. The Memphis Grizzlies have been tough, but in the same breath, they're not that team. And when you look at a guy like Fizdale, who's relatable to today's players, who knows the game of basketball, who the great coaches, applaud and say can coach, and you get rid of him because his relationship with a guy you damn well know is on the tail end. He's not ascending, he's descending. Excuse me, there's a problem here.
Usually the question is who has more value, the player or the coach? Long term, you'd have to think the coach has more value than the player here. They're going for their immediate, what they perceive as their short-term interest. They're wrong. I will say again, on Gasol and Zach Randolph and Conley's best years together, if you put all their best years together and the best version of that Memphis team, they were never going to win a championship. Yeah. They'd give the champions a tough out in 6 games, maybe 7. They weren't going to win a championship. So they're chasing their tails right now.
Fair enough. That'll do it. When we come back, another tough night for Lonzo and the Lakers in a loss to the rival.